How do I feel my feelings? Welcome to the Therapy Brothers podcast. I'm Brandon. I'm Tyler. We're brothers, we're therapists, and we know recovery. Bring your stories, your questions, your successes with real recovery. Hey, Tyler, you ready to have some hard conversations? Let's do it. Let the Therapy Brothers podcast begin. You guys, welcome back to the Therapy Bros podcast. It's good to have you. Today is the Therapy Bro podcast because Tyler is out doing his thing, living the dream. I don't know what he's doing. He's probably on the top of some mountain somewhere, or I hope he's taking a nap. That's what he needs to do, is catch up on some sleep and rest his two fake hips. So I hope he's doing that. But every time he's not here, we miss him. So hope he's doing well. Hope he's recovering. And so you got me today. But luckily, I have a good guest on today with me. So Andrew, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
If you could just give a little bit of background of what's going on with you, some context, and ask any questions that you have.
Yeah, I guess my context, the question, right, is I'm really trying to understand how I can feel my feelings, right, especially as I'm trying to work on being empathetic towards my wife and just in general being able to feel those things when for so long I've suppressed everything. And the reason why I suppressed everything, right, I was introduced to pornography young, right, probably 10, 11 years old, and was raised in the LDS church where that's not a good thing, right? So a lot of shame built up around that. And so early on learned, hey, don't say anything about it. There's just, it's something I'm dealing with. No one else needs to know about it. And also was raised in a household where we didn't talk about feelings, right? That wasn't something that was a common thing to talk about. Hey, how are you feeling? What's going on? So just, that wasn't part of my life, and I was doing things in my life I wasn't proud of, and so that was just my natural way to deal with it. And kind of dealt with that throughout life, right? I would clean up the addiction side. I served an LDS mission, and felt like I solved it, right? Not knowing what I didn't know. Came back and was good for a while. Got married fairly young, right after my mission, around 22, and so I felt like I was clean, I was good, and marriage was going to fix everything. Mm-hmm. But addiction came back, and then the way I dealt with addiction and my emotions was to check out, right? And so I would distance myself from her because I didn't want to hurt her, right? And I didn't want to face my pain. I realize now I didn't want to hurt myself. But that's how I dealt with it. I would distance myself, and I would tell myself stories about how she was acting and feeling rejected and feeling, okay, if she doesn't want me, I'll just check out, right? And so, and I could check out, meaning ignore her, right, for days at a time and even weeks at a time. If I felt she wronged me in any way and I was waiting for an apology or something, I would just be quiet and silent. I didn't get angry and lash out, but I would be quiet. And in the back of my head, I always had that thing: if you have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all, right? Not the greatest thing I'm learning.
But in a way, you're stonewalling and just like shutting down completely. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Yep. And so we've been married for 20 years, so that happened for a long time. And about a year ago, she'd had enough of it. I had as well. I just didn't know how to deal with it, right? And so I just kind of came to the conclusion this is how life is, right? We're not going to have a great relationship. I'm just going to continue feeling like I'm owed something from her and not get it. And she's going to feel distant. And so we just kind of drifted apart in that sense. And she started seeing a counselor, a therapist, and then prompted me to as well. And so that's kind of started about a year ago, where I really started doing some work. And I would say throughout that time, I would white knuckle it, right? That's the term that's used now as far as my sobriety goes, without having any real tools. And so through joining a therapist and then some men's groups and ARP groups and things like that, I've learned a lot of tools and kind of how I was really dealing with things and some better ways to deal with it. And now I'm trying to understand, how do I get in touch with those feelings? We're currently in a separation, so we started a therapeutic separation that was supposed to last 90 days. We're 8 months in now, so the therapeutic part is ended. Yeah. So trying to process that. And we go to a couples ARP meeting every week. And so she's sharing some good things there sometimes, vulnerable things. And I find I'm not connecting with it as much as I would want to. I'm not feeling the emotion around some of those things that she's sharing. And so that's where I'm just kind of like, how do I get in touch with that? I can, if I'm sitting with her in an hour-long therapy session, by the end of it, I might cry,
Mm-hmm.
but it's like, it takes me a long time to process and get to that point. I'm trying to understand, how can I feel my feelings more, maybe not wear them on my sleeve, but be more in touch with my feelings and connect with not just her, but everybody, because I distance myself from most people in that sense as far as feelings go.
Yep. This is a great question, Andrew. And I want to, before I answer the question, I kind of want to dig into some things with you first. Let me ask you, what are you working on in therapy? Like, what do you kind of do in therapy?
Yeah, so I'm seeing someone individually, and we recently started seeing a couples therapist as well. So individually, it was a lot about how I perceive myself, right? I think I was codependent, right? Everything I was doing was trying to make her happy. And so a lot of the work has been, how do I show up to be the man I want to be, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whether or not she's around, right? And so that's been a lot of the work is, hey, am I doing the things that I want to do to be the man I want to be? And I think that sums up most of what the individual work has been. And so that's just paying attention to how I'm reacting to things, paying attention to when I take offense to something, paying attention to, how my facial expressions are when I get frustrated with something, because that's a trigger, right? So a lot of that is kind of the individual work. I don't know if that answers that question.
Yeah, I don't hate that answer, because one of the big pieces here that the reality is you need to get yourself to a place where you don't care about her reaction to things in terms of it being like it reflecting your self-worth in any way, in order for you to really care about her feelings, in order for you to really empathize and connect to her feelings. So that codependency definitely gets in the way of you being able to be vulnerable and resonate with her, because there's a part in your brain that is in defense mode, worrying about self-protection, taking care of you, shutting down, distancing, doing all the tactics you know how to do, because she holds way too much weight. She is your God. You worship her for your self-worth. So to separate that out, to detach from her, is actually really important, so you can then attach to her in a really healthy way. Now, Andrew, I think it's important to also ask the question, okay, we've identified that you're codependent. We're identifying that you react strongly to her. She holds too much weight. The question is why? Like, what is underneath that?
Yeah, and that's a great question, right? And I would say the answer is, because of the shame of my addiction, I felt I needed to do everything for her, like try to make sure everything was great, like do anything that she wanted. And I think that would be the answer. Like I was like so much ashamed of what I was doing, but not willing to face it. So my way of dealing with it was, I'll try and do everything to make her happy, if that makes sense. And didn't make her happy, right? I mean, we are where we're at today. But in my mind, that's kind of what made sense was, I'll just do anything she asks, and I'll try and do all that. And it might go deeper than that, and that's what I'm not sure.
I think we're kind of digging down here. So what I'm hearing you say is I felt like I'm such a piece of crap that I wanted to compensate and be a good husband and get her to see that I'm actually good, because deep down I feel like I'm so bad. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay. And you did this for how many years?
20.
Yeah. And the outcomes of it are eventual separation, but I also would guess probably you having a lot of resentment toward her is a result, and her having some feelings of frustration and maybe resentment toward you, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Because I felt like I'm trying to do all this for you, and then I would feel she owed me something for that, right? Like I wasn't getting anything in return, and I would hold that resentment, right? And then that's what I would shut down and stonewall her, right? So yeah, it was that cycle.
So and it's interesting when I say something like this. What I don't want to do, Andrew, is drive your shame home of what a piece of crap you are, right? But I am going to say this anyways, okay? Have you been loving your wife or consuming your wife?
I realize now it was consuming. Yeah.
Even when you're doing all this nice, good stuff, are you selflessly like loving her and connecting to her?
It was for me. I see that, like, looking back, I can totally see that, right?
Right.
In the moment, I wasn't seeing that, right? Looking at it now, I would say I'm much healthier when I am doing things, because I do go to the home still. I'm not sleeping there. So I'm doing things around the house, and I'm not doing it for her, right? I'm doing it because I want the things done, and if she appreciates it, great, but it's not for her. So I do see that now.
Right. It's this really weird gaslighty breach of trust in a relationship, and it's so confusing for the partner, because it's like everybody else is seeing, their spouse just being awesome and amazing, and they're like icky, like ugh, like I'm gonna have to like smile at him, I'm gonna have to give him sex, I'm gonna have to do this, do that, because he's being so good now. It's not exciting to be in a relationship like that, and it really doesn't feel good to connect to somebody like that, right? Now, I love it, Andrew, that we can have this conversation and that you can see this now, okay? But we're still not at the root of this. You realize that?
I do, which is why I think I can't get in touch with it, but I don't know the answer to it.
All right. So let's go there. Let's go to the beginning here. You said just a couple of things that were interesting to me. And I'd like to kind of flush these out a little bit. Ray, how many kids are in your family?
With me, there's 5.
5. And what number are you?
The middle.
The middle. Okay. And raised pretty Orthodox LDS, on top of lack of emotional connection, and on top of we don't really talk about some things like sex and things like that, right?
Yeah.
I've never heard this story before, Andrew, by the way. So the recipe here that is kind of the concoction that is being made here does not surprise me one bit that you're having your current struggles with intimacy in your relationship. Was there anything else? Was there any other abuse or any other major life events or issues that went on when you were a child?
No abuse. I would say one. I don't know if I would call it a major life event. I was pulled out of school for 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. My 2 older siblings were great in school. I was not. Diagnosed with ADHD, which back then wasn't a big thing. And so my parents were like, okay, how do we deal with this? And so was pulled out of school to be homeschooled, but was really just kind of home. And went back to school my freshman year of high school. So as I've been digging into therapy, I think that was kind of something in my life that was like, okay, there might be something there. But other than that, I wouldn't say no abuse, nothing else major with that.
That's a big deal, though. You take a sixth grader whose siblings are thriving and doing well at school, and you're pulled out of school, and like, what was the message that you kind of heard when that started happening?
I was wrong. Like I was broken.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't good. And they didn't know how to handle it. Like I couldn't be dealt with, so
Yeah.
I think that was kind of the core of it. Like, hey, they're good at what's supposed to be done. I'm not. And because of that, I can't do what everyone else is doing. I have to be pulled out. So
I'm the problem. I'm the one that doesn't fit in the systems here. They can't handle me because of me, because I'm the issue. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then right around then, you say sixth, seventh, and eighth grade. Right around then is when the pornography use started to happen, right?
Yeah, right about probably right before sixth grade, around sixth grade, probably. Yeah.
Okay. And so now I'm the problem because I'm ADHD and they can't handle me, and now I'm using pornography. And I got to ask you, how old are you now?
I'm 42.
42. Yeah. So you're right in my generation. So right then, church was really coming down hard on pornography. Plenty of talks, plenty of things saying don't. So now I'm the problem. They can't handle me. But now I got this secret going on that really makes me feel like. What did it make you feel, Andrew?
I'm worthless, I guess. Just broken. Just not right. I just wasn't good.
So from like 11, 12 years old until now, I mean, we're talking 30 years, there's been this constant message of what's wrong with you. Like, you're a problem. And so you clean it up, you go on a mission, rah, you're fighting hard to do right and be good and all these things, and you get married, and the pornography use persists, and you want a question answered. What question do you want answered from your wife?
Am I enough? Am I good? Right? Am I worth it?
Yeah. Did you say there's a lack of emotional connection from in your family? What was your relationship like with your parents?
I wouldn't know how. I don't know how to explain how the relationship is like. I mean, it was very authoritative type of parenting where you just do what I say.
Okay. Was that coming from dad mostly, or mom, or both?
Yeah, dad and mom supported dad.
Okay.
And there wasn't a lot of like personal conversation, right? It's like I played sports in high school. I remember when they would show up to a game, I'm like, oh, they're here. That was kind of a surprising thing. Support in that way wasn't common. And so, it was more like they were there to provide. And I think the way I processed it is their mindset was, we need to make sure our kids are good until they're out of the house, right? And that was kind of how the parenting style went.
Mm-hmm. Like put your nose down, do the work, and raise the kids and get them out, right? But but missing a giant piece, like maybe one of the most important pieces to the whole parenting thing, which is I mean, it sounds like it was kind of high rigidity and low on love and connection.
Yeah.
Right. Like.
Yeah, that'd be fair. Yeah.
Yeah. So, again, everything that we're talking about, when you start to look at all of this, Andrew, does it make sense to you why you don't love yourself?
Yeah. I've never thought about it like that, but yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, if you were to just kind of outline some of your, I call them faulty core beliefs, but these are beliefs about yourself, about who you are, that, we try to hide from them. We shame screen, we disconnect from our spouse for weeks because we don't want them to see these things about us. What are some of your faulty core beliefs?
Some of my faulty core is just I'm just bad, right? That's just who I am, and there's no way to change that. That's just part of what I am, and that I think part of it too was I can only be loved if I'm being obedient, right?
Contingency model of love.
Yeah. I think I learned that, right, as far as if you're doing what's right, you're not getting yelled at, right?
Yep.
Same thing with church, right? If I'm doing everything right at church, then that's a good thing, right?
That message was driven home to you in both places. At home with a rigid system, an authoritarian system, and then at church, like, I, the Lord, am bound when you do what I say. When you do not, you have no promise here, Andrew, right? And so fall in line, follow the rules, and then you'll be loved, then you'll be blessed. Right?
Yeah.
Okay. So shocker now with your wife, here you are like trying to do the right thing and be obedient and looking to her who's kind of your God, like, give me the praise and tell me I'm okay. Still looking for that question to be answered. Am I okay? And, you have this theory that, you have this deep-seated belief, I should say, that you're just bad. Yet there's a part of you that's still like wanting somebody to say you're good. You're okay.
Yeah.
And I would guess, Andrew, and tell me if I'm wrong, there's also this part of you that's kind of comfortable with knowing these things, these faulty core beliefs, and acting upon them because you're so used to that. You've done it for so long. So although they're kind of destroying your soul in many ways, it's also like, I know how to shut down. I know how to shut off. I know how to lie or play small or do whatever I need to do because I'm bad anyways. And it's our light that scares us the most. It's not our darkness, right? And so if I can hide from my light by, playing these games with my faulty core beliefs, then I don't have to step into who I really am, right? What do you think about that?
Yeah, that hits home, right? And I think that's why I was in that pattern for so long. I would say in the last 8 months, I've been working really hard as far as, not shutting down and still trying to show up. And I've done well at that. Like I'm good at not shutting down anymore. And I'm showing up, but I feel like I'm showing up with the lack of emotion, right? I'm showing up because I know I shouldn't shut down, right? And so it's like, okay, I know distancing myself.
Wait. So I want to rephrase what you just said. I'm showing up shut down because I know I shouldn't shut down. Because I'm showing up guarded. Yeah. I'm showing up, with all. You've gotten so good at this, Andrew. Right?
Okay.
So, having your body there, great. Thank you, Andrew. You're not hiding in the other room now, at least. But you can still have a brick wall between you and the person that you're being vulnerable with because you can shut down, right? And that part of you that's really good at that, I can't good for that part of you. Look at the messaging in the childhood that you had. So you learned how to survive. This is an instinctual thing to help you survive. Through the shame is overwhelming, and so to be able to either disconnect literally or disconnect in the moment emotionally. Like, dang, like that part's done a really good job at doing that, right? But now you're talking to me and you're saying, but Brandon, like, I know I don't want to keep doing that.
Right.
but that part's going to be so strong and almost so automatic at times that it's going to be, it's going to take a lot of work to be able to say like, whoa, I see that coming up and I'm going to let that go. I'm going to allow that to go. What you don't want to do is look at all of, so if the faulty core beliefs are, I'm just bad, and you come to therapy and you go to your groups and you say, and you say, well, look at me, all these parts of me are not working and they're causing destruction. It just drives home that message that I'm just bad. What about the message of you're a freaking warrior who has figured out how to survive to this point in life? Good for you, Andrew. That's awesome. You might be the world's best emotional disconnector. That holy freaking crap. I'm like talking to a legend right now, right? Like good job. That's great. Right? Now, but here's the other side of it. I don't want the outcomes of that anymore in my life.
Right.
Like, I'm gonna appreciate it. I'm gonna love it. I'm gonna have some self-compassion, and also see how amazing I am up to this point. But now I'm gonna choose something different. So I'm not gonna apply the shame in order to try to get over the shame that's causing me to emotionally disconnect. Are you following me?
Yeah.
So this persona, this belief that you have in self, in who you are, on an intellectual level, when I talk to you and we talk about how you're bad, how basically no one will love me as I am unless I perform. Do you realize that this is a lie on an intellectual level?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So how do you go from knowing that these things are lies and this isn't the truth to actually knowing the actual truth in your heart and in your soul? Do you know?
I don't know, right? And that's where it's like, that's the default, right? Even though intellectually I know it, it's still the default, right?
Yeah. So there is a formula. I'm going to give it to you. I have the answer for you. Okay. You ready, Andrew? You can undo all of this programming. You can change your perception of self completely. And the reason I can tell you this is because I've done it personally myself. And I've also worked with so many clients who have done it, and everything changes in their life afterwards. So what happened when you were young is you had visceral experiences. You had experiences in your body. You had emotional experiences that gave you these messages. And those emotional experiences are way stronger than just intellectual knowledge. And so because you've experienced those things, you've experienced the sadness, the shame, the fear, the pain around all of these things that have happened to you. I could say, Andrew, just believe something different. Like you're good enough. You're good enough. And you're like, yeah, thanks, Brandon. That's wonderful. You actually, the way that you undo this shame is you actually need to go have an experience, a real deep emotional experience that counteracts the messaging. Now, here's the catch-22, is that's the very last thing that you want to do, because you've now spent a lifetime learning how to defend against those feelings because you don't want to feel those feelings again. And in order to go down and actually experience something different, you have to let go of the defenses and put the defenses aside and allow yourself to have those vulnerable emotional experiences, right? So the good thing is, as we're talking, Andrew, you're becoming conscious of your shame and of your faulty core beliefs and the way that you've defended. Like you were at least going that far with it, right? And you're also saying like, Brandon, I'm trying to hang in there. Like I'm showing up and I'm not like disconnecting for weeks now. That's awesome. Okay. You're at least aware, but I think there's another step that you can take that can shift everything about the way that you're viewing yourself and the world around you. Okay.
Okay.
The recipe to change your core beliefs is you surrender, you let go of the control around controlling who is going to love you and who's not, because the truth is you're not controlling it anyways. In fact, controlling it is actually making it impossible to be loved.
Right.
So you let go, you let God. That's step 3. You turn your will and your life over to the care of God. And then you practice 3 things. You practice consciousness. So you're conscious of your defenses. They're not just automatic. Like, oh, there I am. I'm like going into like, I don't feel any feelings mode. Interesting. There that is. Okay. You practice courage. So you practice consciousness. You practice courage to act opposite to what that protective part would have you do.
Okay.
So in that moment when that protective part is saying, hey, Andrew, play the victim here, and start stonewalling. What's opposite to that?
Have compassion, I guess, to what's happening.
Good answer. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's connection back to that person.
Yeah.
In that moment, I want to disconnect and I want to play the victim. In this moment, I'm actually going to dig deeper with them about what they're feeling. Okay. But like truly dig deeper. Like I'm going to like open my heart up to caring about them in this moment. It's not fake. I want to actually be curious and inquisitive and really know them. Because knowing them, they might reflect back, you suck and you hurt me, but that's okay. I can still know them. Like I know that I'm okay on my own, so like I can still know them. Okay, so you become conscious, you become courageous, okay, and then you do that consistently over time. So you can do it once and it's like, yeah, Andrew, good job. And you're like, hey, that sucked. I have a vulnerability hangover and I still have all this shame. Right? But if I were you, I'd take an inventory of all the places that you are defending in your life. And I got to warn you, if you do this work, it might cause chaos in your life. Things might change.
Yeah.
You might start having boundaries with your boss. I'm just making stuff up. You might need to fire your God. You might need to really challenge how you're worshiping God, because all the systems in your life have been built around how do I make sure that I look lovable. And when you throw caution to the wind, you get rid of all those systems, and you're like, look, I'm going to act opposite to my shame because shame's no longer running the show here. Then you get to actually feel. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah. I see it. Sounds hard, but I see it.
I know. I'm overwhelming you. And take one step at a time. Just one thing every day. Look at it and say, I know I do that every day. I'm going to do that the opposite thing here.
Yeah.
How many kids do you have?
4.
4. You can practice on your kids. Maybe you naturally emotionally disconnect with them. So it's like, hey, I'm going to go home and I'm just going to like dedicate half an hour just to dig deep and listen and empathize and validate my kid. Like that's what I'm doing today. Right? And maybe you already do that. I don't know, Andrew, but I'm just coming up with some examples.
Yeah, no, that's a good suggestion, right? I've definitely noticed that. Like I said, it's been one of my focuses through this is how do I connect better with my kids. So I think that's a good starting point. I think just getting in that habit of, being conscious of it, recognizing it, and then trying to show up differently. I could see that working. So.
And here's another opposite action. Let's say you try to show up differently and it doesn't feel like you did a good job. Okay. In that moment, what does the old voices say to you?
I screwed it up again.
Yeah. Okay. What's opposite action to that?
Good try. Hey,
Yeah.
you were putting in effort.
Yeah. Like self-compassion, forgiveness. Like opposite action for you is going to be a big heaping dose of forgiveness for yourself, of grace for yourself, because so much of your life has been, I'm just messed up. This is all on me. This is my fault. And so in those moments when that voice comes up, you just say, no, I'm going to let you go because I'm good. Like I love myself and all my brokenness. It's fine. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. I see it. Yeah. That's definitely different than how I've lived my life. So.
Is it impossible, like, to think about, let's even take like the pornography use. Like let's there's this thing in therapy called strengths-based perspective. And what it is where we don't look at anything as with a negative tint, right? So it's all positive. It's all amazing. So like we could look at the pornography use when you were young, 12, whatever. And how could you look at that as positive?
Well, I think the way I would do that is look at why I was doing it. So it was a way for me to escape and feel better, maybe. Maybe that would be how I'd look at it as positive.
Yeah. Okay. So it was a way for you. Is it okay to escape and feel better?
I don't know that that's the best way to do it, but that was a way I was able to survive.
Okay, good. So stay positive with me, right? Like you went back to the positive. That's good. So like, yeah, I'm a 12-year-old kid. I found this thing that worked, and like I went back to this thing that worked again and again. Good for me for finding a way to cope and get through that hard time of life. I did that. Right? And I realized we could go on and say, yeah, but it caused you all these consequences and it was so horrible, blah, 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 blah. But you know what? Good for you in that moment that you found something to get you through, Andrew. You know, and you were young, you were innocent, you didn't realize how powerful that stuff is. You didn't know what you were messing with at all.
Yeah.
Right? But it somehow helped you get through. So that's awesome. Let's accept the past. Is that hard to do?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is. Yeah.
Good. You know what? Like I said earlier, good for you for being so good at stonewalling. Like you are a good protector of self. Okay. Now you don't want that anymore in your life, but forgive yourself and love yourself and accept yourself for what you've done. Okay. There's a we got to wrap up here, Andrew, but there's an underlying thing that's important here. And if you don't mind me getting a little preachy, I believe that a lot of this stems from that performance-based model of love. And I know that God loves you unconditionally. I know God loves me unconditionally. I know you could go do horrible things today. God would still love you unconditionally. And it doesn't seem to me like you know that. And in order to find that out, you need to act as if that's true, not the opposite. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And your work, in order to connect to your wife on an emotional level, it goes as deep as you knowing God and knowing God's love. Because when you get that answer, she's not scary. Her feelings aren't scary. In fact, they're exciting, because when she's angry or frustrated or upset, it's like, this is opportunity for connection. I can dig in here. I can hear her. I can validate. I can be honest with her and have some boundaries at times, because like I can be authentic with her and she can see me and I can see her, because she's not God to me anymore.
Yeah.
If your God today, Andrew, is a God that feeds shame and feeds this performance-based thing that we're taught by your parents and the way you were raised, fire that God. Flush that out completely, because that's the last God you need in your life.
Yeah.
That God, I believe, is a certain God that is there to hurt you and harm you. Right? So,
okay.
What are you feeling, Andrew? I've been preaching to you here. How you feeling?
No, I appreciate it. I'm feeling good. I'm feeling there's some insight there on how I can make some progression to get to that point of being able to feel, what was a little bit interesting, it's like, okay, work on myself and kind of my past to be able to clear that up and be able to feel feelings. So I appreciate that. And about the God thing, I have done some work on that. I went to a boot camp, Warrior Heart boot camp, that really helped shift my perspective. Still, like you said, there's still some work to be done with that. But I think that pulled me out of a lot of shame that I had with the relationship with God.
Excellent.
But yeah, still some work to be done.
Yeah, those boot camps, they'll wake you up. They're good, and then it's that daily work, right?
Yeah.
And Eldridge calls it initiation with God every day. Femininity cannot bestow your masculinity, but God can. And your father gave you a broken form of masculinity. God can give you the real thing. And so it's that daily work. One last thing I got to say before I let you go. You're going to suck at empathy at first. Like, it's a skill and it takes practice, and your wife will feel disconnected from, or like you're not doing a good job at it. You can learn how to empathize. You can get really, really good at it, and you can do it genuinely. But expect yourself to struggle. You've worked extremely hard to do anything but empathize for a long time. All right.
Yeah.
And so again, grace for yourself, forgiveness, watch yourself in the process of learning and growth, rather than expecting that perfectionism. And then just practice here and there. Okay. So, Andrew, it was good talking to you today. Thank you for being courageous. You did it today. Opposite action. Boom. Nice work.
There's a start, huh?
Yeah, really appreciate you coming on. And you guys, if you found this useful, and if you appreciate Andrew too, don't be shy to throw him out a shout out, leave a review, and mention him by name. And thank you for listening. Have a wonderful day. We'll see you.